Well, welcome to another Friday morning material. It's good to have you. It's also, it's always good to have our audience that are watching from some other place. So again, we regret we can't send you serial over the Zoom, but it's good to have you here. And it's good to have, we have an audience here. There's always people that say they're coming, and we always, watch for them. Hopefully a few will slip in as we get started. But today we're pleased to be able to hear about a project that I think most all of us have already heard about, saw in the newspaper, and I think, we are always curious to see projects that, and again, I'll say this, either this is like brilliant or crazy, but in any event, it's a wonderfully big idea, right? Which is, I think, great. And it is so good for all of us to be able to sort of, kind of think of bold ideas. So today we're going to be hearing about the Clearwater Lagoon, maybe not the exact name for it. It's the Clearwater Lagoon proposal. Just towards the Gulfport, just kind of a little bit to the west of the port. And so we have Kenneth Jones and Andy Phalen. That's how you say?
Phalen, yeah.
Phalen, okay. Here they, sort of come together as partners on this project, and we are pleased to be able to learn about it and have a conversation. So I will turn the time over to Kenneth or Andy.
All right. Well, appreciate it. I'm going to show the video first that kind of just details everything, and then we'll go into the presentation that we made to the board of supervisors and a little bit more about it. It's about 2 minutes.
Welcome to the rendering of a project known as Clearwater Gulf Coast. This proposed site was chosen because of its close proximity to existing parking, the Port of Gulfport, Phalen Casino, shops and restaurants in downtown, and it is immediately south of Westside Park. The project began as a way to balance coastal resilience functionality with tourism aesthetics. The outcome is swimming lagoons with water clarity which will match the Mississipp Gulf Coast's beautiful barrier islands. The project is about a mile across from the Island View Casino to Broad Avenue. The first step of the project will be to insert a mixture of wave attenuation devices and rock jetties about 1,000 feet from the current shoreline. These will create the bulk of the coastal resilience features and will break up wave action from hurricanes and other storms similar to a barrier reef. The next step will be dredging the area between the current beach line to the wads at a depth of approximately 8 foot in the center. The sand recovered from this area will be reused in restoring previous beach erosion and also to develop the living shorelines and beaches surrounding the lagoons. The stormwater outfalls will be combined and redirected into more natural wetland features to filter the water leading to the Gulf of Mexico. This will also be combined with water moving in from the Gulf which will pass through additional marsh areas and oyster beds before entering the swimming lagoons. This will create greater water clarity than currently exists. Fountains will be used throughout the lagoons. Landscaping will be added throughout the project, as well as natural plantings close to Highway 90 to reduce the wind-blown sand. The park features will be added for pedestrian crossings, play areas, and spaces for beach vendors to take care of tourists enjoying the project. We hope you enjoyed the video and have a great day.
The Blue Ridge Parkway is pretty much the
That was clear.
perfect American
I'm just gonna pick up the notes.
Parkway runs 469 miles from Cherokee, North Carolina to Waynesboro, Virginia. Along the way, there's not a single stop sign or stoplight, and you can cruise at 45 miles
YouTube
an
still
hour.
playing.
Alright, so just plug that into
There we
the
go.
web browser.
Forget it. Keeps playing videos. All right. So this is the presentation that we gave to the Board of Supervisors a couple months ago, but just a little bit about how this started and who we are. So Andy and I started a company. We both do single family and townhome residential development. So all the infrastructure design, find properties and things like that, try to incorporate some low impact design into those. But I randomly had this idea about a year ago. I was out by Moses Pier, which is where the old Whitecap used to be, with my daughter, around February, March, I think. And we were out there on the beach, kind of walking and stuff like that. And she wanted to play in the water and took a video of it. And I wish I would have brought it, but the water was almost clear. I mean, it looked like the barrier islands, and just got me thinking, like, why is it clearer here and clearer here than I've ever seen on the immediate Gulf Coast, or right by the water and other locations, and learned a tremendous amount after this project. So I am by no means qualified to tell you that this project is going to work. Andy is an engineer, and he's not qualified to tell you that this project is going to work either. So it is an idea. The biggest thing is we're not trying or saying that we're going to get Caribbean water, and this is going to be as blue as the video is showing or anything like that. So the object here is to have coastal resilience along the Mississippi Gulf Coast. But as we all know, there's many projects that are, some of them are on the map over there on the wall, that have been planned that are amazing ideas that have not taken off because of the perceived or potential real impact to tourism. So how do we protect for coastal resilience and at the same time get something that is going to be hopefully an amenity to the Mississippi Gulf Coast? So with this project, I mean, and we'll go into some of the funding stuff later, but I mean, remember that most of these things have been used other places. I mean, we're not inventing anything new. All we're trying to do is combine them and have on the inside a little bit more clarity water than currently exists, and hopefully be something like the barrier. So I don't know. Go into this one. So basically, reiterating this, we went through and found out that the Mississippi Gulf Coast, as everybody would know, has a coastal resilience issue. You can see it by the piers that are still damaged since Hurricane Zeta. We have a lot of beach erosion, which has to be replenished every once in a while, and that costs money. Costs a lot of money to not protect our shoreline because of storms and things like that, and break up the wave action. So the first thing is we basically found there is a need for it, that there's similar projects being completed. The one that I want to point to the most probably is a project in Viola Battery that the Nature Conservancy completed about a year or so ago. So it's actually very similar to this project in the fact that they have the breakwater structures at the end of it. The only difference is they filled it all with wetland plants. So basically, if you could remove from the shoreline an area by the shore that would just be used as a swimming lagoon, it's very similar. During this project, the original, so these are some of the other things that I was referring to earlier, where we have to balance the functionality of the system with the aesthetic appeal of it. So there's other coastal areas that have seen this and have like tried to grasp it and make sure that they're doing stuff that is going to protect against storms and rising tides and climate change and things like that, but doing it in a way that it doesn't detract from tourism. So we're in a really unique position here. We're also in a unique position because our shoreline has already been impacted. We have 26 miles of man-made beach. It is not natural shoreline. We also have, in the site that's selected and some other potential sites that we may break this project into, we have other things like harbors and rock jetties and boat ramps and stuff like that that have further diminished the true natural landscape, right? So in our talks with the Corps of Engineers and some other organizations, whereas this is going to still be a very hard project to permit and make sure we go through all the proper steps and everything, it is less problematic than other places because it's not a current natural shoreline that exists, right? It's already been impacted a tremendous amount from nature. So I'll skip this one just because but it does say all the projects that we have done. One of the big ones, of course, is Ship Island. I love all the stuff that we've done, but we're not protecting what we're doing in many cases. I mean, some of them are doing that with the WADs that are in Hancock County. I think they're doing some or in Biloxi now and things like that, the wave attenuation devices. But I mean, Camille Cut is no more protected today than it was before they did $1 billion worth of restoration. So the next storm that comes by may or may not leave it in the same way it is right now. So how can we do these things that are going to protect them to make sure that thing lasts? I've said this many times, some of the newspapers and TV got it wrong, but they did correct some of it. We're trying to get this, which is Ship Island, and not the Caribbean. So no qualms about that. We're actually going to get Caribbean blue water out there. The hope is to get something similar to Ship Island. So this is the potential test site. Since then, we've actually decided in talking, I mean, just from a political standpoint and to have multiple test sites as well, that it may be better to break this project up instead of about a mile long, breaking it up to two or three smaller sites. But I think the biggest thing is getting it close to existing structures. Like I said, the more impacts that have already been there, the easier it's going to be to permit this project with Corps. But also for tourism and locals to also enjoy this thing, how do we have parking next to this area? How do we have hotel, shopping, restaurants, all these things that, number one, will boost the revenue from those restaurants and hotels and shopping for more people wanting to stay close to this project, which generates tax dollars, which helps, pay for maintenance and things like that. But also just where are these people going to park and how are they going to enjoy it and stuff like that. So this area has a huge park right here, playground on the north. I mean, you could see like concerts going on here, something like that. They've had them here before. It's got a large parking area that already exists. It's got multiple parking areas along Highway 90. It's got Island View Casino and the restaurants and stuff that go along with that. The Memorial Hospital, this is Broad Avenue. Here, another hotel and an RV park, things like that. So this was the original design. And after talking to multiple people, one of the things was like the oyster habitats. And again, many more studies are going to be determined to see if the project and the engineering part's going to be working. But one feedback that we have from this initial design is you're not going to have enough fresh water in this location to keep those oysters alive. So oysters, I guess, are the most finicky balance of, even though they're amazing creatures where one oyster can filter like 50 gallons of water a day, the initial design was definitely not going to keep those oysters alive. And the revised design may not either, but it's going to have a much better chance. So during this project, I went on a trip with my family randomly to Key West, and we went to the swimming with the dolphins thing at this resort. And they literally built what we're kind of trying to do. So it was really neat and got me thinking a lot more about it. Obviously, their water clarity outside the structure is already a lot better than ours. However, it was really neat to see what they did and got me thinking a lot. So the main part of it through this is, let's see, where would be the best place? We kind of go over some stuff. So here in the middle, we would dredge this to about 8 feet. So one thing that you know about water clarity is if you have a very small, like low area that's in those particles, the sand particles and the other particles that are here from the stormwater outfalls and stuff are in constant suspension. So be at like having a bottle of water, a little bit of sand or dirt in it and shaking it up, right? And it's going to look dirty. It's going to look worse than this. But if you come back an hour later and all those particles have sunk to the bottom, the water clarity is much better, the top of the bottom. So same thing with our water, because to the deep water pools, which is the edge of this, it is about 1,000 feet out. It's walkable all year. And most of the time it's less than a foot, 2 feet, 3 feet deep. So those particles, even though we don't have large waves, even tidal flow and stuff like that is constantly keeping those particles in suspension. The other thing is, of course, I mean, the biggest reason for the clarity issue, as well as tannins that are coming and other things that are coming from the stormwater outfalls. Anytime tannins are just decomposing organic matter, which we have leaves that fall and get in our stormwater outfalls and are going out there and they're decomposing. We have other things that are too. So basically we would take the stormwater outfalls. I think there's currently 6 in this area, combine them into 3, and we would get those stormwater outfalls to the edge of the system and clarify them through wetlands. Very similar to the project that was done with the design studio and kind of planned, I think, in Bay St. Louis, if I'm not mistaken, or something. There was one that's on that wall over there. Right. Very similar. To kind of what we were thinking, and getting the clarifying the water and getting it further outside this system, right? And then the edge of the system would have the WADs or wave attenuation devices, which are these things. They're using them in Louisiana, a lot all over the Mississippi, Florida, to break up the wave action and also replenish marsh areas and to keep them from eroding. So start with those at the outside of the project here to allow water to flow in and out of the system. May have some rock jetties that would be used for additional protection on the outside here. And then on the back side of those, we'd have additional wetland plants. So the 8 foot of dredge that we'd be doing in the center would be used to replenish the beach that has been lost to erosion and also build up some of the natural wetland areas and out here as well. So on the backside, we'd have wetlands and then oyster beds on the backside. Hope as we get some salt water and stuff coming from the bay is almost building a brackish water in here because of stormwater outfalls and fresh water that's coming from rain, things like that, and it's mixing with the salinity from the Gulf. And it'll give you a little bit better zoomed in version of what I was just talking about. But stormwater outfall will come out here, and fresh water's going to mix with it. Again, I know sand on Highway 90 has been a huge issue. Cost, anybody have a number on that?
$1 million after every storm.
How many?
It's over $1 million after like a big storm.
Well, yeah, the Hurricane Zeta, we were talking to Chuck Loftus, I think his name is, at Harrison County Beach, and he said that during Zeta alone, they had $1 million worth of damage to the stormwater outfalls and beach cleanup. So, I mean, that alone is a large expense that we definitely need to protect those things. Let's see, fountains. Circulation is probably one of the biggest things that's still an unknown in this project. So right now, we have currently decided to put some fountains in here to increase circulation and aeration of the internal area. However, that's going to be one of the biggest things that needs to be studied in the models and engineering. So again, oyster beds, marsh plantings. I think obviously there'd be a need. Hopefully there's a large tourist draw for this. And so hopefully we can have some kayak rentals and, restaurants like little Ralph Chiller restaurants and things that could rent part of this. Mentioned this earlier. Let me grab it. Sip of water here. That was on mine. Mentioned this earlier, but I think that'd be better to break this into probably 2 or 3 different sites. So we've identified a couple of other places in Pasquichan. Again, these are all very close to downtowns and harbors. The only one that is not would be this Biloxi site too, which is by Shark Heads and the Reef. And they have a beautiful boardwalk that's very used. And I think it would be good to protect that as well. So first storm that comes by, maybe replacing a lot of that boardwalk if we don't do something that to help break up that wave action. And of course, if a Katrina comes through here, it's gonna go over this, right? The first thing it's gonna do is be over that, and it's gonna destroy a lot of stuff inside. But for the minor storms, being category 1s, 2s, things like that, that's what this is definitely designed to help lower that wave action and the damage. And all of these have those locations that have existing parking areas, restaurants, hotels, stuff like that. I'm gonna let Ann take over now. Y'all, I don't know if we should go ahead and do it, or y'all want to interrupt anytime. I'm definitely.
Let's check and see if there's any questions online.
Any questions?
Not yet.
Okay. All right, so Andy Phalen, partners with Kenneth, the residential side engineer by trade, and wildly unqualified to talk about any of this. Kenneth, knowing I'm an engineer, gives me the boring stuff, and then he gets all the pretty pictures, and I get the black and white stuff. So I have no intention of going slowly through any of this, so please do stop me if you have any questions on this. But where we're at now, the project is a pretty good idea, and that's where we're at right now. That's all we know. We're just trying to kind of light a fire on, like Kenneth said, we're trying to balance, hey, let's have fun, but also add some protection. So we got to there. What we need more than anything is like a real champion, not just us trying to convince people that it can work, but somebody like, we believe it would have to be Harrison County. They own the beach, everything else. We need somebody like Harrison County that's going to step up and decide, hey, do we want to do this? I mean, that's question number one. Do we want to spend the money? Do we want to get the money to try to do this? And, you know, is it worthwhile? Other partnering agencies, and we've actually sat down and met with all these people, you know, over the course of what we've done today. The good thing about, you know, these people that we met with, people that we would actually consider partners, like we're not trying to work against you to get the permit, we want you involved. The good thing about that is they have the money, right? So the Corps, and we have a slide here in a minute that talks about some of the funding through all this. The funny thing about this project that I've never heard in trying to find project funding is, met with state representatives and everybody's like, oh man, the money's there. He said, yeah, this type of project fits this bucket of what we're trying to get rid of. And nobody taps into these funds. So it seems like there's actually money available instead of having like the money being the hiccup that makes project die. It seems like this one just needs to get the ball rolling downhill right now. And to Kenneth's point earlier, one of the things we're trying to do, staying around like the Port of Gulfport is, you know, the Corps of Engineers, they've done every study you could imagine just for the port and everything else. We're able to really piggyback off of what's already been done. And that's the same with Point Cadet. It's the same with any of the major places that Kenneth had identified there. All right, so permits and studies. We think that probably going to take about 2 years from the time that we actually even have money available for, you know, the step one, you know, doing the thing. We don't know that this is going to work. I'm not scared to say it. Like, it may not work. We may get through here and say, this is going to improve nothing. This isn't going to protect anything. We've already got this down the road. We don't need this. And you know, and then we shake hands and we go about our lives, right? But that's going to be step one is getting the permits, getting everything started. The problem is if a lot of y'all may know, is a lot of times the hardest money to get is the study phase, the design phase. The easy money to get is the construction phase. So that's kind of where we're at now is trying to look into that. Probably the best source that we have to start is the Corps of Engineers does planning assistance to states, where they do, that's what they do it for, is the studies and the preliminary design. It's generally pretty open and pretty easy to get, but it's got a 50-50 match, and that scares a lot of counties and everything, because again, we're looking at 750 to start to decide if it even works. So, I mean, somebody would have to put up 375. The good news is things like Restore are not technically federal dollars, so Restore can actually be used to match against federal money. So the hope would be if we can get the core money, then the state would pony up the other part on behalf of to get the ball rolling. And of course, you don't need the whole 750 at first. You may spend the first 100, decide it doesn't work and quit. So, it'd be a gradual thing. Nobody would have to put up the money on the front end. But all these others, I mean, you can see we got amenities, we got living shorelines, different kind of funding sources for different types of deals. So preliminary cost, everybody clutch your pearls, $42 million. That's a lot of money, I believe. But Kenneth showed a slide earlier from the Corps of Engineers. They spent $2.5 billion since Katrina. So we're less than 1% of what's been spent on coastal resilience since Katrina anyway. So don't let the numbers scare you too bad. This is also for like the whole project, 2 lagoons, 3 wetland areas. There's nothing to say that, you can't do this one only first, so then maybe we take the 22, it's not going to cut in half, but maybe it goes down to 15, something a little more palatable. But again, to Kenneth's point, you got to make it strong, you got to make it environmentally friendly, and you got to make it fun. Right now, every project we see either makes it strong, either makes it environmentally friendly, or makes it fun. And I don't see why it can't work in concert with each other. I really think that there's a better potential there and that we're not doing it well. I don't think we're approaching coastal resilience. It seems like it has to be, to Kenneth's point, against recreation, against tourism. Well, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to be against all that. There's next steps, kind of really already talked about it all. Funding's going to be the main thing. And we're hopeful that from the time that it's a definite go, it'll be about a 2-year process to have the permits in hand. And, really before you can break ground, start construction. So I think that's all that I have on mine. Like I said, I tried to go pretty quick through it. I know it, but we're just talking about money. It's not fun anyway.
By the way, it's 0.01%.
Did I miss a number yet?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's 0.01%. So we're not talking about, I mean, it looks like a lot of money, but in comparison to what's being spent, it's a drop in the bucket.
I almost freaked out, and Andy was like, well, to do, what was it, Howard Avenue in Biloxi, how much was that project?
It's $2 million.
2?
Yeah.
I mean, that was an existing street.
Yep.
But that just, I mean, literally an existing street that got repaid, basically, with bricks. So,
Andy and Kenneth, you said that you spoke to the Harrison County Board of Supervisors. What was their reaction, and what about all the others you've spoken with? What's the reception been so far?
Well, I'll say the funny thing. Andy, I'll let you say it.
So I told Kenneth, I got out of the consulting engineering business to get away from projects like this. And my hope is that we go meet with the Corps and the Corps says, y'all are idiots, get out of here. Or, we go to the county, y'all are idiots, what are you thinking? Get out of here. But everybody's been overly welcoming and DMR, we met with General Spraggins and some of his head guys, and they had questions. What about dissolved oxygen in the water? So that's what we're at. I mean, that's what we're telling them. That's where we're at, right? So everybody really likes the idea. People like I can't think of the fellow's name at the DMR, the fishery head, but he wants to know, hey, would this work? One thing I kind of like to liken it to, I was just thinking about this, and it doesn't really fit in with your question, Marcia, but I want to say it anyway. But so dissolved oxygen, you're going to get it from out of here, it's good out there. It can die in here, but if it's a windy day and I open my front door and I go open my back door, what happens? My front door slams shut, right? So that's kind of the theory behind, we think this is actually going to suck water into the system and then filter out. Kind of similar to that effect of having your doors open on both sides. I don't know. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Maybe we're wrong, but
That was a conversation with Eric's part. So all that, I mean, we've met with so many people and it's changed a little bit about this, but Eric was telling us it was almost in Pensacola, I think they were doing a project and there ended up becoming a riptide that was created through something like that. So it was almost a natural thing that created a riptide. Well, there ended up being a ship or something that got that sank in there and then ended up filling it all in over time, once there was a structure there for that sand to cling to and stuff. But before that, it was like 30 feet deep, basically, in that little area. And that was almost like a little channel that was created. So again, to Andy's point, that's so we think's gonna happen, but I definitely think there's gonna have to be some additional variation and things like that. That's gonna have to help push the water around.
Yeah, fountains came after that. There no fountains.
So how does the tide action work? Because obviously, I mean, this is going to be tidal, right? So you're not going to try to keep it at a different elevation,
Right now.
right? So essentially, that's going to be, so the water is going to be kind of coming in and out tidally, right? So how, does that just go out? I guess it goes out through the places where the stormwater is coming out as well. Is that right?
Yeah. Just here, here, and here, but that would be the only locations that it could get in.
So it seems
So
like-
you can keep the water high,
We would
but
be-
you would,
We would be at the same elevation as the tide.
So it would
Okay, so
go up and down with the tide, right? So you're creating, so you actually would create quite a bit of current will go through those, right? You know, because all that water has to be replaced through those, right?
And these will be, it's gonna have to be about as deep, I mean, as this, of where the deep water poles are. But I mean, the center is gonna be 8 foot deep as well. So even in the winter with low tide, you're still gonna have water in the lagoons, where as now there's no water. You can almost walk out without getting in, to the deep water poles.
One other thing, Marshall, we've even had private companies in the area that are very excited about it and have, mentioned the potential of them helping to fund some very small amounts, not $22 million amounts, but I mean, from a private to a regulatory side, it really has gotten very good reception.
But it would be public. I mean, it's a
Yeah, but this is not something we want to do. We're not trying to capitalize this. This is just an idea. That's right. And that's,
Well, and a lot of people just ask me, is it gonna be private, or, like charge people to get in and stuff like that? And obviously, no, that's not the case at all. So, I mean, the only thing that would happen, like, would be beach vendors that may be leasing just like they do on the beach currently, right? So if you want to go sit in one of their chairs, then you have to pay them, but.
but even now, to the county, it's still, we're not,
Yeah,
we're not
no,
going to maintain the lease area that we're leasing out. But that'd be the main way to capitalize on it. But, the point is not, let's try to make more money. The point is, hey, let's make a little bit of money and protect, let's do what we got to do either way, and let's just kind of make it more fun.
We had the city of Pascagoula call us right afterwards to want to do a project over there as well. Similar one, like a smaller one, obviously than this, but could be a really good another one of the test sites. No, oysters definitely wouldn't be edible in this location. I mean, no doubt they would not be. In other locations, maybe, but not here because of the port and all those kind of things. But the oysters do their job, right? I mean, they're going to filter the water, even if they're not edible, because of the stuff that they're filtering out. They're still doing their job.
Yeah, the port proximity is the driver behind the inedibility. Y'all know what I'm trying to say.
A lot of big words today.
ability.
Who would maintain county?
County. The hope would be it'd be a very low maintenance system. If you design it right, let Mother Nature maintain it, and the county just go out there and help her out every once in a while. Right?
And obviously, it's different than the one that the Nature Conservancy did, because it's all wetlands in the middle. But one thing that made us feel a lot better about it is they've had 4 named storms come through that area since they started the project, not even when it was complete. And they said they've had very minimal damage, like nothing really that they had to do.
Yeah.
Now,
Like
of course, this one's got beaches on the other side and stuff like that, so I'm sure there'd be some cleanup for sure, but I was really pleased to hear that.
It's actually that marsh, like wetlands that they've created that is doing the protecting.
Sure.
That's what's doing the protecting. So I'm
That
just
and the
wondering
rock
if,
jetties or the rock.
Well, you've got the initial, and we would have the rock jetties around the outside, but yeah, that initial, you want that hard armor for that initial punch, and then you need the wet areas and everything for kind of the dissipation.
I'm just wondering if you could add more of that to your concept. And also, and my main question, which is pretty open-ended, but Have you looked internationally for case studies? Because there's stuff out there.
Brazil.
Oh,
Yeah, they actually have this really cool, this has nothing to do with what we're trying to do, but they have a company that's building huge lagoons, full lagoons for amenities all over the world now. They're doing some in Texas. Like basically, if you have a tradition size development or something like that, they have these full lagoons. And initially, because we were kind of thinking that there may need to be a pumping mechanism to get the water in and out certain locations, and we talked to them, and their systems are closed systems. We're still signed an NDA yesterday. They called us back after they saw some of the, news about it, see if they could work with us on something. But it would maybe that we're using one of their pumps, right? Not necessarily a filter, but something that would work, that would do it. And you can always use, I think on theirs, they do solar or wind power to do that. I don't know. I think you're right about the additional marsh. Maybe a good idea. We had that, I think, in the first design, and then kind of rerouted to try and get more of that circulation in. So I think that's going to be how do you keep the water clarity there? How do you keep the system flowing in and out? So how do you keep it as much of a flow system as possible, but still allowing water flow to not make it stagnant?
well, and one of your whole focuses, and I understand it's not your entire focus, but one of your main focuses is aesthetics.
Yes.
And there's it's a huge task to change the mindset of a culture into what is beautiful and what is not. I just think that this is possibly an opportunity to not just say clear blue water is beautiful, but the marshlands, the wetlands are beautiful as well. And it's an opportunity to communicate that at the same time.
Hey, go back to that other slide.
Because the marshes are beautiful, if you
No,
understand.
the one, the key was. I agree with you. But I'm also realistic in the fact that that's what people are going to fight. The person that lives across the street from this. Just like in Bay St. Louis, I'm also realistic in the fact that that's why some of the projects have been shut down and not done. So how can we incorporate both to do it? So any perceived impact to someone not wanting to go to that beach is going to be a deal killer. And educating the public on wetland systems and why they're beautiful, I agree, needs to happen. I don't know that you can be able to do that at the same time as doing this. Maybe incorporating some of the other stuff and letting them see it and have access to it and have wetland pockets inside of it, but mainly focusing on the beach part of it, I think is the biggest thing. So like in some of the areas like out here, I think that there's a large opportunity to have walkways and fishing piers and stuff like that are somewhat protected, and then they're fishing in the middle of a marsh area.
Exactly. You're not inviting people to go swim in the marsh.
No.
But you're putting that on the periphery so that and a pathway to it, or so they can learn about it and understand it while they're also experiencing this other.
Informational signage type things up and down the boardwalk.
Yeah. No, I love it. That's kind of the point, is to use as much natural stuff as we can that doesn't have to be maintained and get the aesthetic feel as well. So the more that we can add, the better, in my opinion. The more natural features and stuff like that, and natural plantings and things like that, the better.
So is that a bulkhead? The outside?
Rock jetty.
Rock jetty.
Yeah, it'd be, right, a rock jetty on these areas, these would be wads. So just allowing more water flow in and out of those systems, where the entrance and exits are there. And they also create, they're building those to create wetlands, right? So you're not necessarily going to have to do anything on the back of them in theory. You'd have to plant some stuff, but we're already going to have the excess spoils from the dredging, so we could create them initially.
So the advantage of the wads over the rock jetty is habitat. They're very friendly for fish. Rock jetties do have some benefit to habitat. The advantage of the rock jetties, and while we have actually more of that, and then these here is the rock jetties. I mean, if you're building a foot too small or sea level rise, whatever happens, you can always just come in and put more stone on it and keep it coming up. If you're losing more than you want, you think 2 more feet would help protect this storm event, and just go raise it up. The wads being on the outfall of the wetlands is where we're going to want to create habitat anyway. So, and then it's less concerning. I mean, we can't go too high with it because then we just be damming up our entrance nests. So.
Yeah, I mean, this may be a little bit further or higher than the rest of it. But
So, I mean, it's just so nice to hear you all talk about it. And I certainly appreciate your kind of, in a sense, sort of real nice, kind of modesty about it, to kind of say, we don't know, it's an idea, I think it's great. And I think the way you present it, I think allows people to kind of look at it and even to kind of, when I look at it, I think, okay, there must be some way to make it so that somebody like could get in a kayak and kind of be in here and then leave, right? I mean, there must be some way to get enough of a kind of water channel that meandered a bit so that it wouldn't feel like, but again, that's part of the interesting opportunity. You're trying to protect it, but at the same time, the water has to come in and out. Yeah. And is there a way to kind of work the sort of movement of the water that come in and out to actually make, something that would be enough of a kind of meander that it would get enough filtering before it came in, but would actually be something that people could kind of kayak in and out of, right? It'd be interesting to let people experience that, experience this system a bit, you know what I mean? But again, that's kind of a question. Could you actually do that so that you could rent out kayaks and people could paddle around and then they could, head out in the open water and then come back in and actually, that's what I would want to do, to kind of like actually see the system as I kind of move through it,
It's like a spring, almost like a Florida spring, where you'd be paddling down the river, but then you go down the spring run and you go into the spring area.
Yeah.
to your point, one option we've looked at is on that Lightning Point project, see other tier
Uh-huh.
at that could be an option to do that.
Mhm.
To where you just stagger an area out and have that be one of your main channels in and out and stuff. But
Mhm.
I think that's gonna have to be part of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
study.
yeah.
Like, how do you close off a system, but not close off a system and get the water circulation through there? It's gonna have to be done in the modeling,
Mhm.
really, figure it out.
So Paul, you all should know Paul here. He knows this kind of stuff.
Yeah, so, I got a question, or I guess maybe a helpful, contribution, but,
Ladies.
so, Ken and Andy, can you go to the list where it shows, I guess y'all's to-do list of like studies or something? Can't remember when it was at. We have. Yeah, so, have y'all looked at or thinking about doing kind of revenue projection modeling where you look at the footprint now, right? The beach vendors that are there now, the tax revenues from the adjacent properties. The economists in the last couple of years gotten really good at ecosystem service values, putting dollar amounts on those types of things, resiliency values from storm protection, what you save on category levels and things like that. So you have a baseline metrics for all those, for what's there now. It's very cheap and easy to get together. And then you project out and model what, if you have the full footprint done or partial footprints done, what those dollar amounts would be. Secretary of State's probably, that's going to be one of his first questions.
Yeah, I would think so.
For it. And then if you go back one slide to all the agencies that were up there, I guess, yeah, so you definitely need to add NOAA on there for the biological opinion, because there are 2 species that are endangered and or threatened, and they're identified as critical habitat, not essential fish habitat, which is permanent. but actually critical habitat, which is going to be a major hurdle to overcome. And every project that you've highlighted here that was done to completion, and every project that's been done in the state of Mississippi has been in historical footprints of land that used to be there. They were just putting it back. And that's what the Corps and NOAA allowed them to do. What you're proposing here is creating new footprints in open water areas that have always been open water areas. That's a major hurdle to the
One of your two is sturgeon, correct?
yes.
Okay, so we talked to them a good bit, to DMR, about that.
But they don't manage sturgeon.
Right.
No offense. I was the chief scientist at the end. That's a federally managed species, so it's actually talking to the wrong person.
And sea turtles was another big one, and I think that, well, those are the two main.
Those are the two that know are gonna have major.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we'll add them up there. We knew we had to do it. We didn't know, I guess I didn't know the proper.
I'm very in favor of the project. I'm not being.
So we
No, what was the other thing the first thing that you said? It's like, I know the economic modeling, but is it like or do you have some?
For very little funds, you could hire an economist to, first of all, create your baseline metrics of what revenues are created in that footprint there. The Secretary of State may give it to you, I don't know, but in that footprint. So now you can compare and show how much more you're gonna make the county, the state, because of what you do.
That's a great point.
And that's gonna open a lot of doors, because now you can actually project, and some of those restoration funds, the economic restoration funds that the legislature was fighting over for so long. Now, the Business Council has put a lot of heat on that. And I think Anita actually spoke a couple weeks ago about it. There's accountability for some of those dollars spent, and you can actually do that very cleanly here.
Yeah.
Opportunity to show you can really create a lot of revenues here. If it's done this way, then you're going to need a lot of support from a lot of folks. And it may help with some of the homeowners in some of these footprints that lawyer up and have a lot of waterfront property owners have a lot of resources.
Yeah.
And they cause a lot of issues in a lot of different ways in some situations. But maybe you can help with some of that, with showing that their properties may double.
Right.
Or more than that, and they get real quiet real quick when you do that.
No, that's an awesome idea, because I didn't even think about the property values on the other side of the system as well, but I mean, just the vendors alone aren't going to produce a ton of value, right? I mean, or not a ton of revenue for the state or anything like that. It's really going to be the increase in tourism to these areas and getting more shopping and restaurants and stuff like that. Plus, like you said, property values go up, more tax revenue, or so that's
lowering expenditure too.
and lowering expenditure. Yeah, not having to replace the piers every single time a storm comes through. So
I have one more thing real quick. Is it all right?
No, go.
please.
So a lot of the studies that you show, you'll even do, that's a very good list. You had some good ideas and good guidance there that would be needed. If you had an educational component or a citizen science, or just partner with Mississippi State or USM or the aquarium, which is very adjacent, right? And have educational opportunities and do research on this type of area if it's created, it'll open a lot of doors from the education side and hopefully get more momentum. Because this project, all projects of this size take a lot of momentum to get across the finish line. But if there's an educational component to it, just understanding from an engineering perspective for MSU, right? When you create this, what's the water going to do? Those questions that you've already identified, right? So allow the academics to come to the table. And Mississippi State has 22,000 employees, the largest employer in the state of Mississippi. Just think of the lobbying capabilities of that institution alone to help you get over the finish line.
So Eric Sparks with MSU, what's that? Yeah, he's been an amazing help since the beginning, and he's not one to be the lead to the project, but he absolutely wants to be involved in all the monitoring and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, and we haven't talked to USM yet, but I think they'd be another good partner, especially from proximity standpoint and stuff like that. But yeah, I agree completely with your point. No, and thank you very much for the NOAA and especially the economist stuff, because I know that these projects have run into a lot of opposition from neighboring residents and business owners or whatever else. If we can do that, I think that would be huge.
I have a question, and this might be more a question even for David
Okay.
that I'm asking publicly. But it doesn't sound like you've considered really community engagement in this project. You just mentioned that you're getting a little bit of resistance from business owners and residents that they're maybe concerned their view is going to be disrupted or whatever. But do you see potential for a community engagement component of this that would?
Yeah, no, I think Paul's comment is really important because there's already some champions, there's some educational champions. I mean, obviously, as you know, USM, their whole, kind of Go Blue initiative, which you're right up against in terms of, so I think both with the, the kind of city and kind of their vision, which you begin to kind of get some of the other partners and then by way of them, begin to reach out in a way to the communities of not just you two trying to pitch it to, the property owner across the street, right?
Yeah.
I think that the potential to, to get, the kind of city, to get some of these other kind of institutions that are already have a kind of a role between, the kind of leadership and citizens and wherever you work, whether it's Gulfport or any other city, I think will be key, so.
I think it's going to be mandated by the residents. Honestly, there's going
Yeah.
to be, necessary, but also outside of just having to do it. I do agree that it's a good idea to, it's a good
Well,
idea to
and
do.
well-facilitated community engagement will be unbiased.
Right.
And it just provides that platform for people to speak and hear, other agencies, community groups' opinions. And if the facilitation is done truly in an unbiased way and not a mandated way, which sometimes that's the way grants work sometimes, and it can be much more meaningful if it can be a very meaningful process. People realize they don't have as many objections to a project as they thought they might have had and so the community engagement time just provides an opportunity for everybody to really learn and more about the project, but also people want to be heard. People
couldn't agree
want to
more.
just say what they want to say.
So we do land development, and part of that, most of the time, is rezoning. I mean, on every property that we do, because it's zone agricultural and stuff, and learned a long time ago that if you can mail something out and have a community meeting before you go there, sometimes you learn a lot too, and you change the design. I mean, we met with a property owner on one that we're doing right now and changed and added another drainage way or diversion edge basically to make sure that their property wasn't flooded. You learn and be able to incorporate some of that stuff, but just getting them to speak before it's mandated, which for us is at the planning commission, and you have a whole room full of people showing up, but if you do it before, people, so great feedback, and think that we would definitely want to do that before it was.
I think the balance is when do you engage, and of course we're doing community engagement right now, but when do you
You're doing it right now.
You are.
you kind of got to get, to really delve into it. You want to make sure, we need to know more before we can go talk to people because there's gonna be questions and
You say, I don't know.
that's not always a good answer,
You'll have to do that, right? Through the NEPA process.
Yeah, absolutely.
You'll have to engage the public.
Yeah, 100%.
I think she was just saying before you're
Before
mandated
that.
too. Yeah, which seriously,
A
always,
little bit at a time.
yeah, I mean, now, right, doing this, but also just calling the people, have an open meeting at the city, maybe before you know anything, and then you incorporate some of their ideas and, when you still can say, I don't know. When it's all designed, that's the problem too, is when a lot of times when people get involved in the mandated process, the project's done, 95% done, and they don't feel like they really have any input.
And it's true, they don't actually.
They don't have. I mean,
So that's, You're
a
absolutely
viable concern. Yeah, no, no, if you, even, I mean, even if you just sort of said, okay, let's just reach out, contact all the property owners across the street and just get them together and just have this kind of conversation and say, we're just really trying to test this idea out. And kind of hear both their ideas and their concerns. That'd be a good start. Right?
And not even just with you all, but bringing, a couple of those agencies you've reached out to be able to kind of speak to.
Yeah, kind of have a workshop on it just to kind of get some ideas together with with those residents. Part of it, I mean, I suspect there's some that would say this is a wonderful idea. I can, this property that I sat there vacant since Katrina, this will give me the ability to kind of put something on that property that will really, really do well with this amenity across the street and raise their list price. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think after we at least got some initial funding, I think that would be one of the first things that would be great to do, especially inviting those people that you're gonna have community meetings anyways. You may as well have your first one,
Yeah.
before it's mandated. Before you start the full design.
Well, in your project, even as you go after grant money, it can be broken down into the community engagement phase, the planning phase, the design phase, and the implementation phase. So the community engagement phase is a phase worth funding, actually.
Yeah.
And is fundable by who, I don't know. But
You gonna do it? Tracy, you gonna do it?
we do community engagement. I know some people that are really good at that.
That's the thing, that's it. Anything else?
Is there do we have any questions from online people?
We do not.
Okay. Cool. Okay, anything else?
Thank you.
Live audience? Okay, well,
Yeah,
thank you guys. so
appreciate
much.
it.
Thank you. Well, we didn't get cereal. We don't put it away yet. You guys have push it, Mike? Got an idea? Everything's starting with an idea.
Got a dream, right?